Here's what they don't tell you about the big mystery around who shot Drew. Nobody actually cares anymore. The ongoing chaos at General Hospital has reached a level where one could almost understand the impulse to punt Chase into next week. Michael, ever the portrait of useless resolve, declared he would confront Drew, only to decide it wasn't worth the effort. A surprising moment of clarity. Of course, speculation now swirls about whether he saw the shooter on his way back from that aborted conversation. The leading theory remains the same. The culprit is the ever-popular specter of evil Willow. And naturally, Michael would protect half the town before telling the truth, Curtis included. So the detective's sudden interest in Curtis promises nothing but more narrative wheel spinning. Meanwhile, Cameron Matheson continues to suffer the unenviable fate of being a capable actor trapped in a storyline that inspires a universal longing for the fast-forward button. His talent is squandered so thoroughly that even his appearances on morning shows and holiday movies have become collateral damage. Someone might alert his agent, preferably before the audience forms a formal complaint committee. Liesl, in an act of breathtaking self-unawareness, is busy lecturing Willow about giving Nina a chance, as though she herself hasn't mastered the art of selective emotional amnesia. A dash of self-reflection, especially concerning Britt, might do wonders. The show's determination to crush the spirit of young Scout is equally baffling. She looked lovely waiting for her father's wedding that never happened, and the prospect of yet another shattered expectation borders on cruelty. One can only hope the writers resist the urge to disappoint a child for sport. Then comes the Emmy discourse. 40 years without a lead actress win for Jeannie Francis, while accolades are handed to Alexis with the frequency of party favors. The math does not compute, especially considering Francis continues to outclass half the cast without breaking a sweat. Hot takes remain plentiful. Drew, it seems, is both smarter and more attractive than Jason and Michael, a ranking that will certainly scandalize several camps. The question of whether Willow will actually marry him floats about as well. At this point, anything is possible, including the show marrying half the cast off to the nearest sentient object. And then there is Sidwell, whose descent into villainy now includes targeting children. He has apparently surpassed even Sunny and Jason on the moral disaster scale, a distinction that requires considerable effort. In the midst of all this melodrama, a curious lament emerges. Soap operas have not changed. Viewers have. Short attention span culture is allegedly the real villain, not the dozen meandering plots that drift in and out like uninvited house guests. After all, soaps have always juggled extraterrestrials, demonic possession, serial killers, and highly convenient blood sample tampering. That is the charm, or so one is reminded. As for the perennial question of GH motherhood, nominations abound, though none seem eager to claim the trophy. Curtis, meanwhile, is on track to become yet another controversial father figure, especially as Portia's hypocrisy resurfaces with the stamina of a recurring infection. At this pace, General Hospital may finally reveal Drew's shooter sometime around the heat death of the universe. The wish to simply end this wandering storyline grows louder, matched only by the growing nausea provoked by Drew's perpetual screen presence. His political career has not helped. Nothing says compelling drama, like a congressman with the personality of a malfunctioning megaphone. A proposed timeline helpfully outlines Drew's future disasters: the wedding, the lawsuit, Tracy's return, the obligatory custody hearings, Willow fainting on schedule, the predictable psychiatric evaluation, the Ferncliff detour, Liesl's entanglement with shady research, Nina's investigation, Drew's re-election bid, Portia's trial, whispered conspiracies, Willow carrying twins, Anna's return, Jason's discovery, Sasha's reappearance, Michael's relocation, and even a memorial for Scorpio. In other words, an entire calendar year of increasingly improbable catastrophes. If nothing else, the chaos remains consistent. Whether that is a virtue or a warning sign is, as always, left to the suffering audience. Here's what they never admit about those recycled GH storylines, because if they did, half the cast would need witness protection. Next Monday on General Hospital, a fifth phrase spoken clearly enough that even the most distracted viewer should grasp it. Yet confusion persists as though the schedule were encrypted by the WSB. The chaos extends well beyond airtime misunderstandings. It permeates every storyline, every character choice, and every questionable prop decision. Take the perennial threat of Drew Kane being stabbed. If anyone were to do it, the suspect list begins and ends with Helena Cassadine, who treats a dagger like most people treat a favorite scarf. An essential accessory, perfectly suited for any occasion. Alexis keeps trying to dispose of it, of course, but Helena's commitment to cutlery is nothing if not enduring. And speaking of Alexis, the rare glimpses of Natasha inspire a certain nostalgia. Apparently, even Port Charles forgets its more fascinating alter egos. Meanwhile, the idea that Sidwell might have arranged to have Drew shot raises the question of whether anyone remembers why these people were at odds in the first place. Sidwell, with his growing web of schemes, is practically begging to be caught. Then again, in this universe, villains are apprehended only when they've outstayed their usefulness to the plot. A more cynical theory suggests Drew orchestrated his own shooting to frame Michael, a level of pettiness that would at least make him interesting. Unfortunately, the real concern is the collateral emotional damage to Scout, who has already endured more familial upheaval than most adults. She was radiant at the last almost wedding, waiting for her father to marry Willow before the entire spectacle imploded. The child deserves stability, or at minimum caretakers capable of keeping a goldfish alive. Yet some insist that Willow and Drew should marry, apparently for Scout's sake, as though the child's emotional well-being hinges on a union forged out of mutual exasperation. Scout can't even see her brother. Disappointment is practically her default setting. And then there's the matter of Lila's ring, which has become the most mistreated heirloom in the Quartermain vault. Drew still has it, Willow wears it, again. And Michael is apparently the only person who remembers that the ring belonged to him in the first place. But no, Drew insists he deserves it because he is just as much a Quartermain, a declaration that does nothing to excuse the audacity of handing over a family heirloom that was never his to give. The result is a spectacle that makes both Drew and Willow appear delightfully unhinged. Willow accepting the ring from her second husband and using it to marry her almost third is a gesture so tone-deaf it practically echoes. And Drew, ever determined to prove himself the wrong kind of Quartermain, manages to look both petty and pathetic simultaneously. In another corner of Port Charles discourse sits the comparison of Emmy tallies, where Jeannie Francis has gone nearly 4 decades without a Best Actress win, while Alexis collects awards with the regularity of holiday decorations. One might call it baffling, others might call it tradition. As the plots meander, viewers eagerly await inevitable confrontations, Jason versus Sidwell chief among them, and lament missing episodes as though deprived of a vital nutrient. Questions resurface about Gio's parentage and why anyone was expected to keep up with that reveal in the first place. Even the latest Cyrus mystery drug speculation imagines a morgue swap conspiracy in which apparent deaths are merely chemically induced naps before Selena and Brad whisk the bodies away to some subterranean lab. In Port Charles, this is not the least plausible theory offered. Amid all this, there are fond memories of SoapNet marathons, Black Friday leftovers, and simpler days when the storylines were at least chaotic in a charming way. And in a final nostalgic plea, there is the wish for Ronnie's return, an actress beloved, a dynamic with Tracy that could have anchored the Quartermain saga, a missed opportunity for genuine spark in a landscape increasingly defined by recycled plots and squandered chemistry. In sum, Port Charles thrives on confusion, misplaced heirlooms, questionable parenting, and the enduring hope that the next episode, whenever it actually airs, might finally make sense of the delightful mess. Here's what they don't want you noticing about Willow, Drew, and the so-called love story they're pushing. Gio and Brooke Lynn have apparently entered their consume the audience's emotions era, while the rest of the canvas seems determined to compete for most chaotic storyline. At the center of the current circus stands Drew, who is either planning a wedding, starring in a Hallmark movie, or redefining the word duplicity depending on which screen he's on at the moment. One moment he's proposing to someone else on morning television. The next, he's allegedly the great love of Willow's life. Though there remains an enthusiastic school of thought that Willow is playing him with the finesse of a seasoned strategist. After all, nothing screams romance quite like possibly framing someone for a shooting in order to regain custody of children. Meanwhile, an entire faction has already accepted that Willow and Chase are on a collision course back toward each other and are drafting couple nicknames with the solemnity of a constitutional convention. Given the speed at which this saga moves, the nickname may outlast the storyline. Portia, for her part, continues her unwavering commitment to being the show's most consistent hypocrite. Outraged by Nina's actions while cheerfully endorsing Curtis's own betrayals, she's now juggling a pregnancy, a questionable alibi, potentially falsified records, and the possibility of a baby who may or may not belong to Curtis. Depending on the rumor of the day, she will either miscarry from the strain of her secrets, be exposed and ushered directly to jail, or hand Curtis a child to raise entirely without her. Any outcome appears designed to underscore the same point. Portia's talent for manipulation remains her most reliable trait. Her selectiveness and righteous indignation also torpedoed what could have been a perfectly enjoyable Nina-Ava alliance. Ava, having no pressing need to involve herself, happily delivered the latest revelation straight into Portia's hands, and Portia, ever consistent, responded with self-interest disguised as moral outrage. Elsewhere, Elizabeth has taken it upon herself to offer Michael the kind of advice that would make any parent reconsider opening their front door to visitors, suggesting that he sacrifice his children's safety to spare Willow from marrying Drew was a bold attempt at guidance, if bold is generously defined as intrusive and wildly inappropriate. The fact that she did so, while apparently unaware of Willow's own talent for psychological gamesmanship, only added to the absurdity. Not that the rest of the town is faring better. Curtis has begun quoting Glorilla, which is perhaps the most unexpected plot twist in Port Charles this season. Spoilers hint that Ned's heart attack will send Brooke Lynn spiraling into a reevaluation of her life, marriage, and her ongoing fixation on Willow. And in the background, a collective countdown has begun for the moment Drew's carefully stacked house of cards finally collapses, preferably with handcuffs involved. In between all this, the real world dared to intrude on Thanksgiving, leaving viewers stunned not by tragedy, but by the audacity of interrupting their soap opera. Fortunately, the holiday rerun offered nostalgic comfort in the form of Lucky and Cyrus, reminding everyone that Port Charles chaos once had a very different flavor. And through it all, fans continue to fast forward, theorize, roll eyes, and root for the downfall or redemption of their preferred characters. In other words, business as usual in a town where secret agendas, moral gymnastics, and ill-timed proposals are just another day at the office. Here's what no one wants to admit about the mysterious shooter storyline. Someone in Port Charles is lying, and it's not subtle. Michael's ever-shifting account of his whereabouts the night Drew was shot continues to demand scrutiny. He claimed he intended to confront Drew, but decided against it, an admirably convenient change of heart, especially when he was later spotted loitering near his car with all the subtlety of a man hoping no one asks follow-up questions. The far more intriguing question is whether he was actually returning from a visit he now pretends never happened, and whether those evasions conveniently mask the fact that he may have seen the shooter. Of course, the suspect pool is already a creative exercise. The shadowed figure was certainly too short to be Curtis, despite the inevitable investigative spotlight swinging in his direction. Curtis is the kind of person Michael would cover for without blinking. And then there is the enduring theory of evil Willow, the fragile porcelain doll with a conveniently concealed dark side and a cult-forged fracture or two. Stella remains a contender as well, though Willow's penchant for performing innocence while hiding storm clouds makes her the leading candidate. Meanwhile, in the land of unrelated but nonetheless baffling drama, Scarlet Spears' turn as young Glinda in Wicked Good was a rare bright spot, undeniably talented, striking on stage, and clearly going places. A refreshing contrast to Chase, who has been loudly and enthusiastically testing the limits of everyone's patience. Blaming Drew for Willow's impending marriage was an inspired bit of nonsense, rivaled only by Brooke Lynn's apparent obliviousness to the very obvious romantic threat hovering around her husband. The atmosphere surrounding all this discourse has grown bleak. Any attempt at conversation now seems to provoke attack rather than debate. Even simple questions, such as whether Michael saw Kai and Trina, go unanswered, lost in the noise. Martin offers no such ambiguity. His fixation on Laura's loyalty to Sonny is tedious at best, especially when his own moral compass is so heavily mortgaged to Drew's wallet. Friendship and loyalty are apparently negotiable, provided the check clears. The day Drew inevitably cuts him loose cannot arrive soon enough. If Michael truly lingered outside Drew's home the night of the shooting, the conclusion is unmistakable. He saw the culprit. Yet the silence remains deafening. As for alibis, Elizabeth's hinges on her being at work, plausible enough, though her access to Quartermain firearms lingers uncomfortably in the background. As for the constant circulation of a certain Outback photo, the collective plea is simple: enough. The repetition has reached the point of performance art. The same could be said for the endless Drew-related lamentations. At some point, exhaustion eclipses outrage. There are lighter diversions, like the guilty pleasure of watching Thanks Mom more than once, an indulgence many seem unwilling to admit, yet widely share. Less pleasant is the ongoing puzzle of Trina, whose reaction to her parents' divorce lands somewhere between melodrama and regression. Having already navigated one parental split and managed to alienate the father who loved her unwaveringly, her current emotional tailspin feels curiously juvenile. Elsewhere, certain viewers declare they'll abandon any show that dares feature Cameron M., as though his mere presence is a cultural catastrophe. By this logic, he might as well embark on a full-scale media tour just to watch the outrage stack itself like sandbags. And finally, the age gap casting epidemic continues to insult both logic and optics. Drew and Willow, Jason and Britt, Sonny and D.A. Turner, all textbook examples of pairings that resemble paternal mentorship more than romance. At one point, someone genuinely floated Sasha as a partner for Jason, a man who helped raise Michael, whose peers are now being lined up as love interests for Jason's genetic twin. The show is hardly short on age-appropriate women. It simply refuses to use them. In sum, the chaos remains rich, the logic scarce, and the choices magnificently questionable. Just another day in Port Charles. Here's what they never admit about GH's younger cast. The show treats them like disposable props. The younger set in Port Charles has become an unintended game of where are they now? And the confusion only grows each time an adult solemnly announces that yet another child is off-screen for reasons that appear to defy both narrative logic and basic geography. Yes, the Rocco-Danny-Charlotte cluster is delightful, but the show seems determined to behave as if these three now represent the entirety of the town's youth population. Meanwhile, Aiden briefly materialized long enough to be declared back home, only to be packed off again to spend time with Lucky, an efficient explanation if the goal is to quietly erase him from the canvas. The production has leaned heavily into a Liz is lonely theme, complete with monologues about empty houses and the agony of isolation. Add Michael's musings about parental duty, and the writing all but telegraphs the next move. Aiden may not be recast at all, merely excused from existence via a neat little reveal that he has chosen to live with his father off-screen. Then there is Jake, whose prolonged European exile has reached the point of parody, and Scout, whose periodic mentions suggest she is alive, well, and trapped in a narrative void. Georgie is conspicuously missing from storylines that should absolutely require her presence, such as her own mother's coma, while James carries the entire burden of acknowledging that family still exists. Given her age, Georgie should be integrated into the Rocco-Charlotte-Danny friend group, not functioning as an intermittent ghost. The vanishing act continues with Ace, who should be toddling through holiday events, prompting chance encounters and emotional beats. Instead, he has joined Avery on the list of children who apparently slip into alternate dimensions between scenes. Donna appears just often enough to prove she still resides in the material world, while others seem to live in storage. Even Leo, once a vibrant piece of the show's family dynamics, has faded into absence. All of this might be forgivable if casting reinforced coherence, but the situation with Aiden borders on farce. The last actor to appear in the role was 20-something, attempting to pass for a 15-year-old through posture alone, while the actors playing Joss, Trina, and Gio are all younger. Jake, canonically the older brother, is portrayed by someone 17. The visual math simply collapses. A recast isn't merely preferable. It is essential if the character is ever going to re-enter the story without derailing suspension of disbelief. Of course, the practical realities of child actors, school schedules, residency, competing jobs, mean availability is always limited. Viewers understand this. What grates is the pretense that these logistical hurdles can be solved by writing children out of the narrative, but still expecting their absence to feel natural. And no, replacing young actors with perpetually available newcomers won't help if the production refuses to commit to actual contracts that justify that availability. The result is a growing cast of theoretical children, referenced but rarely seen, drifting further from relevance. At this point, even Bailey Liu has become a trivia question. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Drew's behavior makes more sense if he arranged the shooting. Drew's latest storyline grants him the sort of unchecked authority that would make an actual member of Congress choke on their oversight briefing. He waves restraining orders into existence without cause, dispatches law enforcement as though he personally commands the executive branch, and generally behaves as though legislation is something other people in Washington handle, while he metes out justice from his own private fiefdom. Yet the moment someone actually tries to kill him, all that swagger evaporates into, remarkably, pure indifference. A congressman survives a shooting, and somehow neither the Secret Service nor the FBI appears even mildly curious. Instead, the investigation is left to a local police department so entangled in conflicts of interest, it could qualify as performance art. Meanwhile, Drew displays no fear, no vigilance, and not even the basic curiosity one might expect from someone whose life was nearly ended. He doesn't ask questions, he doesn't demand updates, and he certainly doesn't behave like a man who suspects the assailant might return to finish the job. His serenity in the face of attempted murder borders on the theatrical. It suggests either divine confidence or, more plausibly, foreknowledge. After all, it is strangely convenient that he seems to know the shooter won't be making a second attempt. His obsession isn't with survival or justice, but with ensuring Michael takes the fall, regardless of evidence, logic, or the existence of other suspects. Even Curtis briefly crosses his mind, but that's merely a detour on the path to the true objective. Exerting control over Willow and tightening his grip on the Quartermain sphere. If the identity of the shooter genuinely mattered to him, he might have bothered to provide the police with whatever he remembers from that night. He might have shown even a flicker of concern. Instead, he's far more focused on property acquisitions and power plays. It's almost as if the shooting itself were less a traumatic event and more a convenient narrative device, one he may have orchestrated for maximum leverage. The writing only amplifies the absurdity. Characters with deep histories and complex motivations are pushed through plots that defy both logic and basic governmental structure. The actors could craft more coherent arcs on their own, and the current trajectory has all the hallmarks of a script assembled by an algorithm that skimmed a civics textbook and decided accuracy was optional. If Drew truly knows more than he's admitting, the story should acknowledge it. A discreet confession to a character like Martin, even without naming the shooter, would at least tether his behavior to something resembling human psychology. Until then, the audience is left watching a congressman who shows no fear of death, no interest in justice, and every incentive to exploit the attempt on his life. An arrangement suspicious enough to inspire one unavoidable conclusion. Perhaps he set the pieces in motion himself. Here's what they don't tell you about justice in Port Charles. It only applies to people Laura isn't related to. The ongoing leniency toward Martin is one of those signature feats of Port Charles justice. The sort of optical illusion in which major crimes evaporate the moment a family decides they're inconvenient. After masterminding a fraud scheme against the Quartermains and falsifying an actual legal document, a will no less, he somehow continues practicing law as if ethics boards are mere decorative suggestions. Disbarment? Consequences? Those appear to be optional upgrades no one has purchased. Naturally, the court remains agreed not to press charges once a confession was delivered to Laura, who, ever the patron saint of selective accountability, treated the entire affair like a minor lapse in judgment. Apparently, criminal wrongdoing only matters when it involves people not sharing her last name or orbit. Ned also performed his customary act of self-appointed family spokesman, assuring Laura the family had no intention of pressing charges, as though that decision required exactly zero consensus. With Tracy temporarily off the canvas, the hope is she will return from vacation with a firmer grasp on the concept of consequences than the rest of her household. The storyline itself had all the structural integrity of wet tissue. It existed primarily to provide a guest spot for Erica Slezak, and the timing was equally baffling, punctuated by Ned's sudden heart attack, a convenient narrative exit ramp for multiple cast members. This is yet another example of the show's abiding commitment to abandon storylines mid-sentence. The audience is expected to remember dangling plots indefinitely, whether it's Drew's shooting or the eternal fire mystery, all of them referenced endlessly, but resolved only in theory. The writers appear to craft arcs with the attention span of someone spotting a squirrel mid-scene. As for Martin's path forward, there's no shortage of possibilities if the show wished to repair the damage. Stella could easily be deployed to guide him toward karmic rehabilitation, steering him into pro bono work for an inventive nonprofit, perhaps a Big Brother-style program run through GH. This could actually generate meaningful narrative momentum, Chase volunteering, bonding with a child awaiting adoption, and the inevitable clash when BLQ refuses to support it. Their relationship already trembles under the strain of clashing loyalties. This could simply be the final fracture. Chase has never blended naturally into the Quartermaine mold, particularly when perpetually at odds with Michael and now his own wife. A single father storyline would give him far more dimension, and a reunion with Willow would only be remotely plausible if she embarked on long overdue, intensive therapy to address her catalog of unresolved traumas. A new, unrelated therapist on staff at GH could easily anchor that arc. And for anyone confused about why Martin remains a free man, no one reported the crimes. In Port Charles, illegality is merely theoretical unless someone bothers to file the paperwork. The city's moral compass spins wildly, depending on who's holding it. Michael witnessed Sonny shoot Jagger point blank and chose obstruction over justice, even recruiting Carly to help tie the bow on the cover-up. Christina's near-fatal attempt on Ava's life, ensnaring Liz and Rick instead, also evaporated because no one stepped forward to report it. The town operates on a simple rule. If a crime occurs and no one files a complaint, the law politely looks the other way. Even a home break-in would go uninvestigated if never reported. Port Charles simply elevates that principle to an art form. Here's the truth the show refuses to admit about the Drew and Willow storyline. Drew and Willow's storyline has become the endurance test no one signed up for, yet everyone is being forced to take. After more than a year of narrative wheel spinning, the plot now resembles a treadmill powered exclusively by audience patience, an energy source the writers appear determined to deplete entirely. The question is no longer where the story is going, but why it insists on going anywhere at all. The pairing has grown so tedious that the fast-forward button has become a survival tool. Each new episode arrives with the same stale ingredients, Drew dominating the canvas as though the show has been rebranded in his honor, Willow drifting back into robotic passivity just when she'd begun to resemble a fully animated character, and Chase reduced to a cardboard cutout lingering in the background. The entire ensemble seems trapped in a narrative quicksand from which no one is permitted to escape. The alleged tension, if it can still be called that, has stretched so thin that even a dramatic twist, such as a belated "Drew is actually Shiloh" reveal, would land with all the force of a damp napkin. Any attempt to retrofit shock value now would only underscore how exhausted the material already is. And looming over it all is the deeply unappetizing fact that the impending wedding carries the emotional appeal of a family tree drawn by someone who never learned the meaning of in-law. The history alone should make any romantic payoff feel less triumphant and more like an editorial oversight. If this storyline must continue staggering forward, perhaps the only real suspense left is whether the best man will indeed be Ezra, because at least that would provide a moment of novelty in a plot that has otherwise forgotten how to surprise. Until then, viewers are left waiting for the inevitable conclusion, whenever the writers finally decide to stop polishing an idea that should have been flushed months ago. They keep saying Nathan is fine. Here's why that claim makes absolutely no sense. Nathan's return arrives gift-wrapped in charm, calm demeanor, steady support, and the kind of face that makes characters forgive plot holes they absolutely should not. Naturally, this raises the obvious question, what's the catch? Because somewhere inside those conveniently missing 7 years lurks either a scientific miracle, a criminal conspiracy, or, given this universe, an ill-advised combination of both. The most remarkable part of the storyline isn't Nathan's serenity, it's everyone else's. A detective disappears for nearly a decade, reappears with the memory of a shaken Etch-a-Sketch, and the collective response from Port Charles's finest is a shrug. The police show no interest in investigating a disappearance that almost certainly involved a crime. An investigative journalist, famed for treating stories like Bloodsport, suddenly develops an aversion to curiosity. Even the resident tech genius, who treats digital firewalls as mild inconveniences, can't be bothered to poke around. The lack of inquiry is not just suspicious. It's outright implausible, as though the writing expects the audience to accept collective amnesia as standard procedure. Meanwhile, Nathan moves through the story with a suspiciously gentle cadence. He's pleasant, he's composed, and he shows absolutely no urgency about discovering what happened to him, an attitude perfectly tailored for those who fear he's one trigger away from reverting to whatever conditioning, programming, or sinister inheritance he might be carrying. That alone makes any attachment to him feel precarious. The chemistry dynamics only complicate matters. There's a convincing spark between the actors playing Lulu and Nathan, as well as with others on the canvas, while his connection to Dante feels oddly flat. A neatly blended family unit seems almost too easy to imagine, which is precisely why such harmony is destined to be shattered the moment Maxie opens her eyes and identifies him as not her husband. If the goal is drama, this is the neon-lit arrow pointing directly at it. Of course, the theories range from the plausible to the delightfully absurd. A simple case of amnesia would be almost refreshing. Yes, it's the soap equivalent of reheated leftovers, but at least it's predictable. The more exotic speculation suggests cloning, a Faison special at that, with Britt's brief fear serving as the accidental tell. If Nathan is 95% himself and 5% mystery meat, that missing fraction could easily house an agenda no one has clocked yet. His oddly heightened interest in Lulu and Rocco over Maxie and James certainly doesn't quiet suspicions. Then there are the wild cards: secret brain implants, rogue Cassadine puppeteers, stolen tarot cards, and the persistent specter of Faison's final project, because when a show keeps invoking a villain's brain in a jar, it's rarely for ambiance. Still, beneath the chaos lies a strangely compelling presence. Nathan carries intensity without aggression and warmth without naivete. The hope, of course, is that whatever twist ultimately explains him honors both the character and the audience's intelligence, and when the dust settles, a reunion with Maxie remains the emotional endpoint many still want, assuming the man standing in front of her is truly Nathan at all. Here's the part of Molly's storyline the writers hope you won't notice. Molly's professional life has always looked like a carbon copy of her mother's, an impressive feat of academic stamina, certainly, but not exactly a rousing declaration of independence. The result is a character who appears permanently trapped in someone else's blueprint, dutifully excelling at a career that seems to give her little more than bragging rights and migraines. A shift toward creative work would do more than liberate her. It would finally give the audience something resembling narrative oxygen. Romance writing, for instance, would suit her unnervingly well. All that meticulous organization and analytical discipline could actually thrive in a field that rewards structure just as much as imagination. And, given the show's chronic aversion to depicting romance of any kind, handing the task over to Molly might be the closest viewers ever get to witnessing an actual love story. The irony is that the series has already flirted with the perfect turning point when she edged close to uncovering Rick's secrets, the basement, the emotional manipulation, the parental favoritism so blatant it should qualify as performance art. There was every reason for her to walk away from the legal profession entirely. It could have been the ideal moment for her to reinvent herself, perhaps by founding a production company, exploring animation, directing, or writing. Practically any creative pursuit would have felt like a long overdue act of self-preservation. Instead, the opportunity slipped by, and Molly remains dutifully in place, loyal to a career chosen more out of expectation than passion. She deserves better than that. Preferably something that lets her build a life defined by her own interests, not inherited obligations. Whether it's novels, film, or some hybrid of the two, a creative path would finally give her something she has rarely been allowed: genuine happiness. Port Charles is in for another wild Thanksgiving. General Hospital spoilers for December 1st, 5th, 2025 tease a wild Thanksgiving week in Port Charles. It's Thanksgiving in Port Charles, and while the Quartermaines endure in their usual chaos on Monday, it will also be time for Willow to walk down the aisle to Drew. Again, the last time they tried to wed, the secret of Nina's hookup with Drew came out. Come Tuesday, Willow is said to make a big decision, and this will presumably either be to go through with the wedding or not. Now that Nathan has decided the investigation into who shot Drew should bring the attention back to Curtis, it appears he may track him down at Thanksgiving giving, right in front of Trina. When Trina gets a shock, it could simply be that her dad's being hauled into the PCPD, but it could also be learning that she's about to be a big sister. By the end of the week, Kai will be there for his girlfriend during her family turmoil. Elsewhere in Port Charles, Laura will receive a happy surprise on Tuesday, and she certainly deserves it after the wild week she's had with being re-elected as mayor and then discovering Dalton's dead body in her trunk. But by Friday, she's said to be haunted by what happened. As for Britt, it's going to be a not-so-happy Thanksgiving for her. She's not very well liked by most of Port Charles, but when she starts drowning her sorrows on Thursday, she'll be left leaning on Jason by Friday. Thanksgiving chaos hits Port Charles as the Quartermaines tempt disaster. Willow and Drew revisit the altar, and Isaiah makes a sacrifice. The General Hospital, spoilers for Monday, December 1st, focus on the Thanksgiving holiday. The Quartermaines celebrate the only way they know how, and that's doing whatever it takes to avoid eating pizza. Meanwhile, Drew and Willow take another stab at a wedding. Will they actually complete the ceremony this time? Plus, Trina is in for a shock. Thanksgiving for the rest of the world was last week. It's actually happening this week on GH, so get ready for a Quartermaine gathering. Chase may be a little delusional. Not only does he keep coming up with excuses for Willow, but he thinks he can roast a turkey for the Qs and have it not turn into a disaster. In fact, he's determined to avoid the inevitable pizza fest that this holiday usually turns into. Can he do it? We don't know why Willow said she would try to marry Drew again. This could be a legal tactic, or she may actually still love him. Heck, it could be both reasons. Drew wants to marry the person he thinks is the love of his life, so look for Willow to walk down the aisle. And she will do so with her mother in attendance. Nina and Willow have sort of made amends. They repaired their relationship enough for Willow to want Nina to be there for the big day. Just because Willow is walking down the aisle, it doesn't mean Drew and Willow will seal the deal and get married. However, there is no way Drew will let this wedding have the same ending as the last time. After all, he always gets what he wants, or so he says. Nathan and Dante recently took a closer look at the persons of interest in the Who Shot Drew case. For the duo, Michael and Carly checked all the boxes and could potentially have shot Congressman Cutthroat. However, Dante and Nathan also thought it would be worthwhile to take a closer look at Curtis. Is that what happens when the spoilers hint that Nathan tracks down a suspect? Does Nathan want to talk to Curtis? That is, if Nathan is working the Drew investigation and not a different case altogether. Look for Isaiah to make a sacrifice, most likely in the name of being there for Portia. He is all about her these days. Would this be about his being her alibi for the night of Drew's shooting? Or is it about something less explosive? Finally, Trina is in for a shock. There are many things that could shock Trina at this point, especially if this teaser concerns her parents. She could find out that her mom is pregnant. That's low on the shock scale, but it would still be a startling development. Much higher on the scale is if she finds out that her mom has no idea who the baby daddy is. Finding out about Isaiah would stop her in her tracks. Seeing Jordan and Curtis together would do it too. Something else that would freak her out is if somebody found out that she and Kai were at Drew's the night of the shooting. The possibilities are practically endless. General Hospital spoilers are in for Monday, December 1st, 2025. In the next episode, fans can expect Trina Robinson to make a shocking discovery. Giovanni Gio Palmieri gets a surprise visitor. Plus, Willow Tate seems to have cold feet on her wedding day. Keep reading, and let us talk about what is coming up in the ABC soap opera. At the Quartermaine mansion, Brooke Lynn Quartermaine panics over the turkey. BLQ warned her husband that the family hasn't had a turkey come out on Thanksgiving in 30 years. However, Harrison Chase insisted. It doesn't seem like it goes well as BLQ tells Chase in a preview clip that he was the one who wanted to tempt fate. At the Ashford place, everyone will be holding glasses and getting ready to toast. However, as Kai Taylor stands next to Trina, the girl totally freaks out and says, "What did you say?" The woman isn't looking at Kai, but someone across the room. Could this be about Portia Robinson's pregnancy? General Hospital spoilers for the next episode reveal that Isaiah Gannon shows up at the hospital. Portia asks what he's doing there. So, he might offer to help Portia cover for Terry Randolph. As for Stella Henry, she tells someone that's all the revenge they need. Gio opens the front door, but has a shocked look on his face. Just who is the surprise visitor? Could it be Lois Cerullo? The woman should be there for the holidays, so we will have to see. Drew Kane is ready to marry Willow. However, she appears to be having second thoughts. Nina Reeves does give Willow a way out, but will the bride take it? It's about time that Willow realizes she's making a huge mistake by tangoing with Drew. However, Drew also knows that Willow is the one who sent Sasha Gilmore Corbin and the baby out of town. So, even if Willow turns away from Drew, he has leverage to force her to stay with him. I have a funny feeling that Michael Corinthos might be the one to save Willow from Drew in the end. Yes, despite Michael framing his ex-wife. Which storyline are you looking forward to seeing the most on Monday, December 1st, 2025? General Hospital spoilers claim Marty Gray may have a long list of enemies in his wake, especially lately, but none of them top Tracy Quartermaine. Marty and Tracy have been going toe-to-toe to match wits, banter, and sabotage for a while now. What started as playful gouges at one another has quickly evolved into something much more serious, and the fans are starting to question whether that is the ultimate point. Knight had an interview recently with Michael Fairman TV, where he admitted that there is potential for something more than cold-blooded enemies transpires between him and Tracy. Can you see it? After he tried to swindle the Quartermaines out of their family home and estate, fixing Monica Quartermaine's will to appear as though she bequeathed everything to her sister Veronica Ronnie Bard, Marty pulled a fast one, and he almost got away with it. He should be in the slammer right now for what he did, and any other attorney wouldn't have a law license to practice. But Ned Quartermaine's penalty came as a harder pill to swallow in some ways. Marty had to tell his sister, Laura Collins, what he did. Now, he's looking to be on her good side again, and he might not be the only one he's interested in appealing to. The fans are ready for Tracy to find someone to spar with again. Monica is gone. Lois Cerullo moved back to Bensonhurst, though her travels for Allison Blaze Rogers' musical tour keep her busy. Luke Spencer is gone but not forgotten, much the same as Gregory Chase. Tracy is loved and lost. A lot. It may have hardened her a bit more, but she's a strong enough woman to hold her own. At the same time, a guy like Marty could wear down her defenses. But the fans seem to agree we can't just jump to them falling for each other. This is going to have to be a slow burn if it happens. Can we pause for a moment to think about what would happen to Lucy Coe if she caught wind that Marty was coupled up with Tracy? Poor Lucy. Sure, she made her bed, and now she has to lie in it, without Marty or Scott Baldwin, conveniently. Still, she only recently tried to create some peace in her strained relationship with Tracy, sharing memories of her family with her just after Monica's passing. Will this reignite the rift that has long existed between them if Tracy skates off with the guy Lucy lost? General Hospital spoilers and updates suggest that a shocking twist involving tampering with paternity results might be on the horizon. Could this be the very method through which Drew Cain seeks his revenge against Curtis Ashford in the end? Portia Robinson is currently doing her best to keep her pregnancy under wraps, but the news has already slipped out to a select few individuals, including Curtis. Curtis remains unaware of Portia's intimate encounter with Isaiah Gannon, which means he hasn't even begun to entertain the thought that there might be another potential father in the picture. However, it seems increasingly likely that Portia won't be able to keep this secret for much longer. If she finds herself in a position where she has to reveal her whereabouts on the night of Drew's shooting, the truth about her being in Isaiah's bed will inevitably come to light. Regardless of how things unfold, Portia will ultimately have to undergo a paternity test to clarify the situation. This situation could potentially lead to significant complications if Drew receives updates regarding the circumstances and decides to leverage that information to inflict pain on Curtis. In the episode of GH airing on November 26th, Drew openly admitted that he is convinced Curtis was the one who shot him. Nevertheless, his primary goal is to see Michael Corinthos imprisoned for the crime. As for Curtis, Drew has subtly suggested that he is contemplating alternative methods to ensure Curtis faces consequences for his actions. Curtis, on the other hand, is excited at the prospect of becoming a father once more, particularly because he has the opportunity to be present from the very start of this new journey. Despite his deep affection for Trina Robinson, he has regrettably missed out on her formative years and all the significant milestones that accompany raising a child. Curtis is optimistic that this experience will be markedly different from the past, making it all the more devastating if the DNA test results do not favor him. There is a possibility that Drew may take drastic measures to ensure that Curtis is deprived of his child as a form of retribution. This certainly aligns with Drew's character, as he often resorts to devious tactics for revenge. It's conceivable that Drew could manipulate the paternity test results to make it appear as though the baby rightfully belongs to Isaiah, even if Curtis is, in fact, the biological father. General Hospital spoilers and updates tease Drew Cain has a wedding do-over, while Harrison Chase takes a daring gamble. Plus, Gio Palmieri gets a Thanksgiving surprise at the Quartermain's front door. As usually happens this time of year, General Hospital will be preempted Friday, November 28th. That's because of Black Friday, the big shopping holiday in the U.S. for the day after Thanksgiving. Friday, November 28th, will have football. This time it will be Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. It hasn't been announced who might be emceeing the game, but GH viewers may wind up getting a peek at Stephen A. Smith in his regular job. Viewers know that he plays Brick on the ABC soap. Read this. ABC General Hospital, Corinthos coffee throw pillow. At Drew's house, a wedding day redo is on the agenda as he has Martin Gray officiate the ceremony for himself and Willow Tate. Drew is filled with joy, even though Willow appears thoughtful and uncertain as he declares, "This is our wedding day. It's going to be perfect." Willow will indeed make her way down the aisle, albeit it might just be a route through the living room. Her mother, Nina Reeves, and great-aunt Liesl Obrecht will be present, while Nathan Reeves is busy with a case and Britt Westbourne is elsewhere. Nevertheless, Willow's friend and supervisor, Elizabeth Baldwin, is anticipated to be there. Although Nina previously stated she would back Willow in her choice to marry Drew, it seems she's offering Willow an escape by suggesting an alternative. Maybe she's sensing her daughter's uncertainty and reluctance as she exclaims, "We can walk out of here right now!" However, all signs point to Willow proceeding with the wedding, as it would enhance her image in court, after all. If she had indeed shot Drew, why would she choose to marry him? More importantly, why hasn't she completed the task? Drew made a valid observation that if he trusts her enough to remarry, it indicates he doesn't believe she shot him. At the Quartermain mansion, Brooke Lynn Quartermain informs her husband that he's the one tempting fate. There was a conversation about Chase taking on the task of roasting the turkey this year, despite the fact that, for many years, it has always ended up being pizza for Thanksgiving. Brooke Lynn previously mentioned that it's the Quartermain Thanksgiving curse. Whenever someone attempts to make a proper Thanksgiving dinner, something goes wrong to spoil it. To make matters worse, there doesn't appear to be a single "Danger Man in Kitchen" sign anywhere on the premises. Meanwhile, Jordan Ashford and Curtis Ashford are outside, engaged in a conversation about Thanksgiving. Jordan expresses to Curtis that they have much to be grateful for, and she speaks the truth. Curtis has made a remarkable recovery from his serious injury and has been walking for quite some time now, while Jordan has managed to stay safe in her undercover operation concerning Jen Sidwell. Curtis is thrilled at the prospect of becoming a new father, which fills him with excitement. Nevertheless, the reality of the situation is yet to unfold. At GH, Portia Robinson beams at the sight of Isaiah Gannon, who returns her smile with equal warmth. She inquires, "So, what brings you here?" As per General Hospital spoilers, Isaiah is set to make a significant sacrifice. Perhaps he's given up his Thanksgiving holiday. It seems that Portia may have chosen to work to avoid the Thanksgiving festivities at the Ashfords. It appears Isaiah might have done something similar, possibly lacking a place to celebrate Thanksgiving as well. In the interim, Stella Henry appears to be in a rather irritable mood as she expresses to someone, "That's all the revenge you need." While it's often said that revenge is a dish best served cold, it's hard to believe that it would be suitable for Thanksgiving leftovers. Perhaps she is reminding someone of the moment she confronted Drew at the Port Charles Grill when she and Curtis caught sight of him alongside Martin Gray. Discussing revenge hardly seems fitting for the Thanksgiving holiday. Nevertheless, Stella is choosing to weave it into her conversation regardless. As Trina Robinson walks into the room with Kai Taylor, did she overhear Auntie Stella's comments regarding revenge? She appears taken aback as she inquires, "What did you just say?" Kai seems somewhat surprised as well, and they both turn to look at the person who spoke. Meanwhile, returning to Curtis, where are he and Jordan having their conversation? Could that be the revenge Stella mentioned? And did Trina see them together? Back at the Quartermain mansion, Gio opens the door and appears taken aback, or perhaps even a bit bewildered. It's clear that this is not a visitor he is particularly thrilled to see. Could it be Nathan on the hunt for his suspect? However, it's likely not Nathan, as Gio is looking down, indicating that the person at the door is shorter than him. Could it be that Emma Scorpio Drake has arrived for Thanksgiving? With Anna Devane supposedly engaged in a AWSB operation, and Mac and Felicia Scorpio likely spending time with Maxie Jones, she must be somewhere around. If there's one person that we can count on to always tell it like it is, you better believe that it's General Hospital star Steve Burton. The actor, who is best known for his role as Jason Morgan, once again shared this thoughts about life and how one can improve while he was at the gym this past week. His words have become very inspirational for a lot of his social media fans and followers. Steve, as always, took to his Instagram account to write, "Just got out of the gym. Hope you guys are having a great day. The gym is the answer sometimes. You know, it gets you out of a funk, makes you feel good, it's good for you. No one comes out of the gym going, 'Hey, this day's gonna suck.' Usually you feel better for a reason. But I always get to think during the gym. It's very meditative for me, you know," he added. But it always comes back to this mindset. It comes back to the quality of our life is going to depend on the quality of your thoughts. We are our thoughts. Like, you know, many people with a negative mindset, all they're going to see is problems. People who are negative can never see the positive. Now, you know people with a positive mindset, they're looking for solutions. The beautiful thing about this is we get to choose every day. Do you want to be negative or do you want to be positive in life? Stay strong. Mindset is everything. And there you have it, folks. Let's see if Jason Morgan applies this to his own on-screen life, right? Then again, General Hospital fans will simply have to tune in each and every day to find out what will happen next. General Hospital airs weekdays on the ABC network. Check your local listings for times. In the meantime, let us know what you think by leaving us a line with your thoughts in our comments section below. General Hospital News has fans wondering the same thing. Is Kirsten Storms not coming back to Los Angeles? That's what everyone wants to know. Keep reading below. Earlier in the year, Kirsten, who is best known for her role as Maxie Jones on the hit ABC soap, announced on her social media channels that she would be leaving California to start a new life for her and her daughter Harper in Tennessee. And while Kirsten made it very clear that she wasn't leaving General Hospital or the daytime television world, it was hinted that she would be back on the canvas sometime in December. Well, several months have gone by and it doesn't look like Maxie Jones is part of any upcoming storylines. Instead, Kirsten has been enjoying her new life in Nashville and has also started a new business. She is now selling sweaters online with her best friend and former General Hospital co-star, Emmy Rylan. But where does this leave Maxie Jones? It goes without saying that General Hospital fans would be devastated if she didn't come back to the show. After all, she is a legacy character that has been through a lot in the last 2 decades. However, seeing how Kirsten is no longer living in Los Angeles, it seems like fans are going to be seeing Maxie on the small screen less frequently than before. That's the distressing part. Now, whether or not Maxie Jones does return to this fictional town of Los Angeles remains to be seen. So far, Kirsten Storms herself has not made any comments about what her next move will be. That said, GH fans will simply have to tune in each and every day to find out what will happen next. For now, don't forget that General Hospital airs weekdays on the ABC network. Check your local listings for times.